In 2019, security footage from a Chicago apartment building captured something that still defies explanation. A man stood motionless in the hallway outside apartment 4C for 6 hours straight, never blinking, never moving, just smiling at the door. But here's what makes this truly terrifying. The apartment had been empty for 3 years, and the man in the hallway had been dead for 2 weeks. This is the true story of what happened at Blackwood Apartments and why the building was demolished less than a year later. My name is Detective Sarah Chen, and I was one of the first responders to what initially seemed like a routine wellness check. What I discovered that night would haunt me for the rest of my career. It started on October 12, 2019, when building manager Frank Torres called 911. He was hysterical, barely coherent, insisting that something was wrong with the security cameras on the 4th floor. When dispatch asked him to clarify, all he could say was, "He's been standing there since yesterday morning. He won't stop smiling." When my partner Mike and I arrived at Blackwood Apartments around 9 p.m., Frank met us in the lobby. The man was visibly shaken, chain-smoking with trembling hands. He took us to his office and pulled up the security footage. What I saw on that screen made my blood run cold. There, in the grainy black and white footage, stood a man in the 4th floor hallway. He was dressed in a dark suit that looked decades out of style. He stood perfectly still, facing apartment 4C, with his arms hanging loosely at his sides. And he was smiling. Not a normal smile, but a wide, unnatural grin that stretched across his entire face. "How long has he been there?" I asked. Frank rewound the footage. "Since 6:47 a.m. yesterday, 27 hours. We watched as he scrubbed through the footage. The man didn't move, not a muscle. Not to stretch, not to shift his weight, not even to blink. Just that horrible, frozen smile. "Has anyone gone up there?" Mike asked. "I did," Frank said, his voice cracking. "4 times. Each time I take the elevator up, he's gone. But the second I leave, he's back on the cameras." I radioed for backup and we headed upstairs. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt like it took forever. When the doors opened, the hallway was empty. Completely empty. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow. We walked down to apartment 4C. I knocked. No answer. According to Frank's records, the unit had been vacant since 2016 after the previous tenant, an elderly woman named Margaret Reeves, passed away. The family never came to collect her things, and eventually, the apartment was sealed pending legal proceedings. That's when Mike noticed something. The door frame. It was covered in scratches, deep gouges in the wood, like someone had been clawing at it, fresh scratches. We called for a locksmith, but while waiting, I decided to check the security footage from my phone, which Frank had given me access to. I pulled it up and felt my stomach drop. The man was back, standing in the exact same spot, same position, same smile. But now he was looking directly at the camera. "Mike," I whispered, showing him the phone. We were standing maybe 20 feet from where the camera showed the man standing. The hallway was completely empty. The locksmith arrived 15 minutes later. As he worked on the door to 4C, I kept checking the footage. The man never moved, never blinked, just smiled and stared. The lock clicked open. The smell hit us first. Decay and something else, something sweet and rotten. Mike pushed the door open, flashlights raised. Apartment 4C was exactly as you'd expect a sealed apartment to look. Dust covered everything. Furniture from the 1990s, yellowed photographs on the walls, outdated appliances in the kitchen. But in the living room, we found something that shouldn't have been there. A sleeping bag, recent, and next to it, a backpack filled with clothes and personal items.
"Someone's been squatting here," Mike said.
We searched the apartment room by room. In the bedroom, we found more signs of recent habitation. The bed had been slept in. There were food wrappers in the trash, dated from the past week. Then we found the journal. "He knows I'm in here. He's been standing out there for 2 days now. I can't see him, but I know he's there. I can feel him smiling through the door. Margaret told me he would come. She warned me before she died that he never left. The smiling man never leaves. He just waits. And when you finally open the door, he..."
"Sarah," Mike called from the bathroom. His voice had changed. Something was wrong.
I found him standing in the doorway, flashlight pointed at the bathtub. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Then my brain processed it. There was a body in the bathtub. Male, maybe 30s, wearing a dark suit. He'd been dead for a while, at least a week or two based on the decomposition. But what made me stumble backward was his face. He was smiling. That same wide, impossible smile. We secured the scene and called for homicide and forensics. While we waited, I made Frank pull up the footage from the previous weeks. We needed to know when the victim entered the building. What we found made no sense. The man in the suit appeared on the cameras for the first time on September 28th, exactly 2 weeks before we found his body. He walked into the building, took the elevator to the 4th floor, and stood outside apartment 4C. He stood there for 6 hours, smiling, then suddenly collapsed. The timestamp read 6:47 a.m., but here's what broke my mind. After he collapsed, his body simply lay there in the hallway for approximately 2 minutes. Then, impossibly, he stood back up and resumed standing, smiling. For 2 weeks, the body had been standing there, decomposing, smiling.
"That's not possible," Frank whispered. "That's not how."
But it got worse. We kept searching through the footage. The forensics team arrived and began processing the bathroom. The coroner estimated the man had been dead for at least 10 to 14 days, which meant he died around September 28th or 29th. One of the forensic techs found something in the tub, partially hidden under the body. It was an old photograph, laminated to protect it from water damage. The photo showed a man in an old-fashioned suit standing in the same hallway, outside apartment 4C. The photo was dated 1967. We identified the body through dental records. His name was Thomas Chen, no relation to me. He was a graduate student studying urban legends at Northwestern University. According to his roommate, Thomas had become obsessed with stories about Blackwood Apartments, particularly tales of a smiling man who allegedly appeared in the building every few decades. Thomas had told his roommate he was going to stay in the abandoned apartment to see if the stories were true. He said something about how the smiling man appears to anyone who tries to live in 4C after Margaret died, the roommate told us. He said Margaret had been keeping something trapped there and now it was free. We interviewed the previous tenants, the ones who lived in the building when Margaret Reeves was alive. 3 different people told us similar stories. They'd seen a man in an old suit standing in the hallways late at night, always smiling, always staring at Margaret's door. But whenever they looked directly at him, he vanished. Margaret had lived in 4C for over 50 years. According to neighbors, she always kept her door locked with multiple deadbolts. She told people she was keeping him out. The week after we found Thomas's body, I reviewed the security footage one last time. This is the part that made me transfer out of homicide. The footage showed the empty hallway after we'd removed the body and sealed the apartment. Timestamp 3:47 a.m. The hallway was empty for exactly 3 hours. Then, at 6:47 a.m., he appeared again. Same spot, same suit, same smile. Blackwood Apartments was demolished in June 2020. The official reason given was structural issues, but those of us who were there know the truth. The last piece of security footage ever recorded from that building showed the 4th floor hallway as the demolition crew entered. The hallway was empty. But if you pause the footage at exactly 6:47 a.m. on that final day, just for a single frame, you can see him. Standing outside where apartment 4C used to be. Still smiling. The demolition crew reported that when they tore down the 4th floor, they found something in the walls of apartment 4C. Photographs. Hundreds of them, dating back to 1967. All showing the same man, standing in that hallway, smiling. In every photograph, the smile was a little wider than the last. I still have nightmares about that smile. And sometimes, at exactly 6:47 in the morning, I wake up with the feeling that someone is standing outside my door, waiting, smiling. If you hear scratching at your door at 6:47 a.m., don't open it. If this story chilled you, like, share, and subscribe for more true horror. New nightmares every week. Tap the bell if you dare.